It's about time. I was on some old hurry up and wait, trying to bust out the gate and beat fate, but lately, I'm moving in my time, not your time, cause it's not your cheese, it's mine. Yo, when I rhyme, I intertwine my mind with the divine, the moment when the divine exponent is trying. It's atonement, kinda like CP time when you in sync unbeknownst to the conscious mind. It's an ill mind, it's still time build and refine, still getting mine in the nine divine. I hang a shingle and mingle with the masterminds, because for me and mine, it's about time. Thank you. So my name is Rob Jackson, as I got introduced, but I'm also known as Blue Black of the Unspoken Herd. On November 3rd, 1997, me and my partner in rhyme, the Honorable Asheru, released an EP on Seven Heads Records entitled Cosmology. Now, the EP, or the rhyme that I just said, was on that EP, in a song called It's About Time. And oddly enough, I was living in Charlottesville in 1997 when It's About Time came out. Now, when I was asked to give a title for this talk, I didn't know. Check, check, thank you. When I was asked to give a title for this talk, I didn't know what day this talk was gonna be. But today, I'm here in Charlottesville, Virginia, on November 3rd, 2017, the 20th anniversary of that rhyme's release, giving a talk entitled, It's About Time. So I usually bug out on stuff like that, but I'm starting to get a little familiar with these occurrences, and I'm starting to refer to them as hip-hop moments. They're like little reminders for me that no matter where you go, there you are. But I'm here today to talk about the meaning and value of hip-hop. And even though hip-hop has changed a lot since it was born in 1973, the meaning and value of hip-hop has remained the same over time. So, by a show of hands, how many people in the audience know what hip-hop is? Okay. All right, by a show of hands, how many people would say, I am hip-hop? Okay, so most people have no idea what hip-hop is, and I completely understand why. The companies and organizations that are currently investing in hip-hop are not really investing in hip-hop. They're either using hip-hop to make money, or they're using hip-hop to market a product, a service, or a brand. But hip-hop is a uniquely American 21st century institution that we don't fully appreciate because of the frames we use to talk about it. It's time to have a sustained dialogue about what hip-hop is and what it is not, where we can change the frame and decouple it from the things that we normally associate with it. Hip-hop needs a space or a place where people can go, explore, experiment, and reflect on hip-hop's cultural production process, from meaning to production to consumption, where national and international partners can come together and from media, from academia, from advertising, and talk about hip-hop as a 21st century institution. Now, before I go too deep and start losing people in the audience, hip-hop is not rap music. Okay, so some of the people in the audience went, huh? And some people are like, thank you for saying that. So let me explain. Rapping is something you do. And in 2017, a rapper is a profession or an occupation in the music industry, which is all about making hits, selling records, and touring. And thanks to technology, anybody can say anything and put it to a beat to make rap music. But that's not necessarily hip-hop. See, historically, hip-hop has been talked about as a fad, a style, a culture, a movement, an industry, and even a nation. But for me, hip-hop is a way of life. And hip-hop wouldn't exist unless people like me assigned a meaning and a value to it, and then shared that meaning and value with other people. who would then share that meaning and value with someone else. So that's how hip hop works, and that's how hip hop has traveled all over the world. I teach an online history class called Hip Hop America, where I begin talking about the history of hip hop from the pioneer's perspective. I ask the students to use their historical imagination to see what the pioneers saw. And then I change the frame, and I say, hip hop is a socially constructed identity, or a personal identity that we embody or personify, and then we project onto the world until it becomes who we are in the world, and then what we're known for. Then I change the frame again, and I say hip hop is a social identity that we share and co-create with other people, but this social identity predates our involvement in the music industry. See, hip hop is, and hip hop operates under its own authority. So hip hop determines or decides what is and is not hip hop. So in a way, you could say hip hop is socially conservative, in that it seeks to retain its meaning and value over time. For example, hip hop is nostalgic, like when people talk about back in the day, or when they talk about the golden age of hip hop. But at the same time, hip hop is extremely progressive because it's constantly changing and adapting to new circumstances and giving new meaning and value to the anecdotes, the archetypes, and stereotypes that already give meaning and value to our lives. So when I talk about hip hop in this frame, I often refer to it as the changing same. But what most people don't know about hip hop is that it has ethics. Not morals, like right or wrong, but ethics, or personal standards of conduct that govern our collective behavior. See, these ethics help us keep the alignment between our personal identity and our social identity to create a timeless, authentic brand that we manifest as individuals or collectively as hip hop. I describe these ethics as don't bite, keep it fresh, and don't fall off. Okay. Don't bite means don't copy. Make up your own moves, make up your own rhymes, be original, be unique. But that's not enough. You have to be prolific. Or at the very least, you have to make more because what you did before is not good enough anymore. Therefore, you have to keep it fresh and new. And finally, don't fall off means don't stop. Kind of think of it like riding a bike. Don't stop. Keep on. And in hip-hop's wisdom, they've left us some jewels that we can use in the 21st century, especially in this information economy that we're in. Keep looking, searching, seeking, finding. And that comes from the hook in a song called Planet Rock. So together, all of these ethics help one rise above their circumstances, to be ascendant or emerging in character. Hip hop would say to be fly or to come up. And you can do this all by staying up on the new next thing. See, the people who identify themselves as hip hop are engaged in the vigorous pursuit of an idealized self, where we are constantly investing ourselves, applying ourselves, and enriching ourselves in an ongoing process of original self-creation, where one is consistently being who we are and always have been, but continuously reinventing ourselves to become who we would like to be. And in this way, hip-hop has learned to recreate itself into personalized works of art. Now, art is traditionally talked about in terms of materials and techniques, and art history is all about identifying the value in cultural objects. But in hip-hop, we are the cultural object. The primary material is identity, and I am is the artistic material of life. The subject of our art is the individual, but the object of our art is the idealized self that is being created. So let's say it another way. Hip-hop is artistic self-fashioning with the private goal of self-creation, but the public goal of social solidarity. So let's think. Let's think about it like romantic individualism meets the modernist avant-garde. Always out front, always moving forward, just a little bit ahead of the curve. So maybe we should talk about hip-hop the way historians talk about art, from 30,000 feet up. And then we could have conversations about hip-hop that are classic, romantic, modern, and postmodern. And then we could have parallel conversations about the consumer technologies that have enabled or empowered hip-hop to broadcast and distribute our ethics and our brands all over the world. See, hip-hop has been constructing authentic brands from identities and broadcasting them all over the world for 44 years. And we are very comfortable with social media because, like hip-hop, social media exposes us to a wide array of self-representations where we are free to render, depict, or construct ourselves and the world as desired. We're constantly borrowing bits and pieces of identity and assembling them as necessary or as needed to be anything at any given time, as long as it's consistent with our personal brand. So let me recap. It's time to have a sustained dialogue about what hip-hop is and what it is not. Hip-hop needs a place or a space where people can go to explore, experiment, and reflect on hip-hop's cultural production process. And we need to bring together partners from media, academia, and advertising to talk about hip-hop as a 21st century institution. So let me close with another one of those hip-hop moments. On August 11th, 2017, Google commemorated the 44th birthday of hip-hop with a doodle that explained how, when, and where hip-hop was born. It was fantastic. It was animated. It was interactive. And it was hip-hop on the big digital stage. But that night, here in Charlottesville, there were some protesters with torches that made their way to the lawn. And the next day, violence broke out about a block away from where I'm standing, and it made me feel a kind of way about giving this talk. But on August 13th, 2017, President Barack Obama responded to the events in Charlottesville with a tweet that became the most liked tweet in the history of Twitter. So here we have the 44th president of the United States using social media to respond to the events in Charlottesville just 2 days after hip-hop turned 44. So I don't know if President Obama considers himself to be hip-hop, but he used his authentic personal brand to reframe the events in Charlottesville and give them new meaning and value. So if he's not hip-hop, he's the closest to being hip-hop we have ever seen in an American president. And I know that if we don't have this sustained dialogue about what hip-hop is and what it is not, then hip-hop has the potential to become even more like the president we have now. Thank you. Thank you.